Hi, I'm Ernest Tibbs, and you're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.
Hi, everybody. John Liebman here. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com. Here we are today on location in Hollywood, California, with none other than Ernest Tibbs. How you doing, Ernest?
How you doing? Nice.
It's great to see you, and I've been wanting to know more about you and your career because I know you've been pretty active for quite some time. So why don't I just let you talk? I know you're from California, and you have a musical family, and your dad was very inspirational, but why don't you tell the story? How would you describe your musical upbringing?
Well, my cousin Ronnie and my uncle Sidney, they both play guitar.
I have an Uncle Sidney.
Okay, and he's one of those kind of guys, anything with strings, he could play. So he was inspiring, and my Aunt Babette's a great vocalist. So, just...
No Aunt Babette's, go ahead.
Yeah, so... That's what kind of first inspired me. My grandmother got me into. She took me to Reed's Music, which is a store in Los Angeles, I think around 40-something, and Vermont. It's not there anymore, but that was a music store, and she took me there and bought my first bass, and that's it. And from that point on.
That was your first instrument? You didn't play anything else before the bass?
No, my mom tried to make me take piano lessons. I wish I would have kept it up, but. That was the bass is where my heart was at.
It's not too late. Nothing wrong with the bass, though. So once you discovered the instrument, who were your influences on bass? Which bass players did you admire? And about how old were you at the time?
I think first I was listening to guys listening like pop music, but then when I was about 12, I discovered the jazz radio station here in LA. It was called KKGO. You could hear everybody on there. Like 1 minute you could hear Ray Brown, and the next minute you could hear Weather Report with Jocko, or hear, Anthony Jackson or Abraham Laborio. All the guys were on there, so I was just listening to everything from the Crusaders to, traditional jazz artists,
Okay, well, how did your career get rolling? What kind of gigs were you doing initially?
I started playing with some guys. I was in high school, and the college guys, they could read better than me. They could play technically, but some of the other college guys wanted to play with me, even though I was in high school, because I was into the funk stuff. And at that period of time, they wanted to play all the Sanborn covers, so I could play that stuff better than some of the college guys. So
like Run for Cover,
all that stuff. Yeah, that was, and then I became, when I discovered Marcus Miller. Of course, we're all big fans of Marcus, and so then after that, when I got out of school, I went to Musicians Institute, and after that. Ricky Minor gave me my first gig with James Ingram, first major gig, and then I also went out. I did a musical with Gladys Knight called Madame Lily, and that was really short. It was like a month, but Ricky Minor hooked me up with James Ingram, and then a guy named Dave Anderson, a great drummer in town, hooked me up with David Benoit, and from that point on, I met Eric Marienthal, Pat Kelly, and all those guys. And I met Joel Taylor, who's a great drummer,
yes.
who later hooked me up with Allan Holdsworth. And from that point on, I started working with all the guitar players. I was on a session. I met Phil Upchurch on a session, and he took interest in me and started hiring me for all his gigs. And I did a couple of recordings with him. So it just started taking off from that point.
You must be a very versatile player. I'm thinking while I'm listening to you, Gladys Knight music, Allan Holdsworth music, very different.
Oh yeah, I take pride in that. I try and keep it open, keep an open mind. It's supposed to keep an open mind, having a great feel, being musically sensitive to what's going on. It's not always about the chops you have. Of course you have to have chops, but it's about being musical and having big ears and listening and having skills, developing your skills.
Well, what's keeping you busy these days, Ernest?
I'm doing everything from this great band with Simon Phillips, Andy Timmons, and Steve Weingart called Protocol. We've done 2 records so far, Protocol 2 and Protocol 3, and we're going to go out on the road. We got a lot of stuff planned in 2016, and I just did a recorded some tracks on Dean Brown's upcoming record. And I'm even doing theater gigs. I love doing that. Great actors and singers are amazing, and it's challenging because it's different every night. The conductor, you got to watch him, and it's a reading gig. A lot of the stuff is notated. I've done it before, so it's something I like doing. It keeps you, I like doing a lot of different things to keep my skills up in different departments.
Sounds like you are. Tell me about your equipment.
Right now I'm using this great bass called Exotic Bass. It's a lightweight, like jazz bass. It's a 5-string. I went to their place in the Valley out here in Los Angeles and tried out a bunch of basses. And this particular one just had like a vintage but a modern sound to it. I like that. And I have this beautiful 5-string F bass. It's an AC LA Cajon model, and it's a 5-string. It's just beautiful. And recently I just hooked up with Richard Roos and Trickfish, and that amplifier is just, I love Richard because he's a brilliant guy. He's a bass player. Michael Pope designed the preamps, and of course we know Michael's a master musician. So I mean, it's something.
And a master tinkerer too under the hood.
Yes. So it's all like bass players designing
For bass players.
So it's great, you know. It's not like a guitar player designing a bass amp. You know, they know what he knows what we want to. We know what each other what we want to hear, right? So it's that's a really it's a good thing. I'm looking forward to playing.
What kind of strings do you use?
I use D'Addario strings, and they have a awesome set called Flex Steels. I love that. I usually use a taper core B. And I use like 40 through like 100, and then I have like a 125 taper core B, and I love those strings. On my fretless, I use a
light,
nickel.
huh?
Yeah.
Kind of on the lights for slapping or for what?
I just like them because they're expressive to me, and I don't want to have to strain. I just like, I was a bass player. I used to use standard gauge, and Mel Brown suggested years ago. He goes, "Why don't you try a lighter?" And I said, I tried it, and I didn't like it, and I said, "Okay, I'll try it." And
do they wear out faster?
I'm not sure. Probably, I don't know.
Okay.
I change them quite a bit, so
What does quite a bit mean?
At least I sweat a lot, so I change them at least once, twice a week.
Okay.
Yeah. Sometimes if I don't order them, I'll change them maybe every 2 weeks if I get lazy. But if I'm playing a lot, I like to have a fresh sound, so
me too.
At least once a week.
Well, how about the future, Ernest? You're still young. Obviously, you have a lot of energy. What else would you like to do that you haven't gotten around to yet?
I want to do my own solo project, not necessarily like a tenor guitar player, but just some of my own compositions and tunes and playing and play some things with some of my friends and record.
All right. Well, you be sure to let us know, because that would be of great interest to our audience for sure. Last question, Ernest. What would you be if you were not a bass player? It has to be something outside of music.
I've been playing bass since I was 12 years old. I always think, man, I'm like blessed to be able to do this, and something I always wanted to do. Maybe a veterinarian. I love animals. I love dogs, and I love cars as well.
Okay.
Sporty cars. So something to do with cars or animals.
Cars or animals. All right, very good. Well, great getting to know you, Ernest. Keep doing what you're doing. We will keep enjoying it. Much luck and continued success to you always. On location in sunny Hollywood, California, with Ernest Tibbs, I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.